So, thank you, Richard. And the meeting is being recorded. Got it. All right, so let's bring the meeting to order, 6:07. First order of business, we do have a quorum with 2 planning board members present physically here and the third, Rich Baker. Thank you, Rich, zooming in from home.
Yep.
So old business, discussion and consideration of commercial development review ordinance amendments addressing commercial solar facilities. Here we are.
So, can I say something real quick?
Please, yeah.
So Rich and Craig and Peter, it is really important that when you guys get a chance to look through the changes that I made to this document after your meeting last week. I spent a lot watching the meeting and going through, but I want to make sure that I captured everything that you guys intended. So at some point before your next meeting or in the coming week, if you would go through this and just ensure that everything that you meant to have happen in this document actually happened.
And when you reference this document, that's the one that you printed out for the agenda tonight.
That's
which
right.
is-
And I have emailed it to everyone
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, so it'll look like the KV cog thing with a
Yeah.
bunch of tracking on it.
Yeah.
Okay, Thank
Can I
you.
ask Richard to save the copy that I would have gotten tonight and on hard copy, and I will stop in the town office and pick it up?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich.
yep. Great. Okay, so where did we leave off?
Well, I mean, we've made it all the way through the KV cog template now,
Yeah.
but there were some items on George's memo that have yet to be addressed, and he referenced those at the very end of your meeting last week. And as best as I can tell, those begin on page 5 of his memo, which is part of your solar packet there. And they are numbers 9 through 13.
So number 9 on George's memo begins, and Rich, do you have that particular memo from George?
Yep, they're right in front of me.
Okay, perfect. So we're on the one that says maintaining a 100-foot buffer of natural veg, blah, blah, blah. And the footnote in this was that this was done in accordance with IF&W guidelines in Maine Audubon and Renewable Energy Wildlife in Maine. So that's the idea behind that language. And the purpose is to protect wildlife quarters and stream water temperature and oxygen levels. So we're talking about streams less than 6 feet wide with less than a 2% slope. Stream crossings shall be designed and constructed in accordance with Maine DOT's Stream Smart Road Crossing Pocket Guide. Larger crossings shall be designed by a Maine registered professional engineer based on the principles of the Maine Stream Smart program. I guess just for everybody, I would ask this: does anybody have any comments or reason to not include this language? I guess.
I didn't know we had a smart stream crossing program, but anyway, I first was going to comment off the end of the first line where it says rivers, streams, or brooks, except for perpendicular crossings required. I later understood the perpendicular means the crossing itself. If the crossing involved a road or whatever that curves down through, I think that would be fine. But first I was thinking that the whole road had to be perpendicular through. And I guess my thinking is that sometimes a curved road is better than a straight line of sight, not line of sight, but straight runoff down the road to the brook. But I think the perpendicular means the actual crossing itself.
Okay, gotcha. So you have no problem with the language about the perpendicular aspect of the crossing?
No,
Okay, you're okay with the way it's worded then? Yeah, okay, great,
So I have just a logistical question.
sure.
I'm wondering where this might fit into the working document. I mean, we've got a section on setbacks, we've got a section on visual screening requirements. Do you think we should also have a section dedicated solely to buffers?
Well, it seems like there's quite a few buffers.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we had a section, we could just enumerate, there's 5 of them here.
It seems to be a logical place,
yeah,
you know, a large category for that.
Okay,
I don't remember if George, when he presented this originally, if he categorized those that way, but this makes sense to me, you know.
well, they are all setbacks and buffers, though.
Yep. Yes. So does the board mind if we go through each of these points, the language, and then see if we're okay with those? And if we need to adjust anything, we can do that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So therefore, let's go on to number 10 in George's document, 250-foot setback and natural vegetation buffer from habitat of high-value plant and animal species identified and mapped by I&W's beginning with habitat program, including but not limited to habitat for state or federally listed endangered species, significant vernal pools, and high or moderate waterfowl and wading bird habitats. So we're talking about a 250 setback in natural vegetation buffer from that type of habitat.
It's similar to the shoreline zoning ordinance resource protection.
Right.
I don't have a problem with it.
You okay with that? Okay. I was trying to think of downsides of that. I can't think of any at the top of my head, but I was just trying to on the fly. But it's consistent, like you said, with shoreline zoning language. Oh, yeah. So I would be in favor of that then, too. If we go on to number 11, which is 1,320-foot setback in natural vegetation buffer from areas identified and mapped by the main I&W as high or moderate value deer wintering area. That's an important one. You know, when I first saw this, I was like, what is 1,320, right? And then I did the math, it's a quarter mile, right? So when I first saw it, I was like, I don't get it.
I was just wondering the same thing.
You know, so, yeah, so it's like, because other things are like 100 or 250 or something. But like, how did they get this?
One of the thoughts of mine when I looked at this one is, I know that's a recommendation, I think, Fish and Wildlife regarding development such as housing and industry and stuff like that. And I'd be willing to contact them if you wanted to, but my thinking is these things are like one-time disturbances. It doesn't have a whole lot of disturbance other than the things there. I'm not sure. In my mind, I'm not sure you need 1,320 feet from a deer wintering yard that once this is in place, it's just, you know, I don't see the big problem with being a little closer, but
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And at the same time, I don't mind keeping it that way, that distance now, 1,320. Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you have a big solar farm, they're cutting off a large stretch of area for deer to go
Right.
with the fencing. You're already taking a big chunk, and if it's that close to a deer yard, then I think we need some distance.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the 13, 20.
And it is, I guess it is a fenced in area, so it's not like it's providing habitat for whether it's eating or whatever. The deer aren't going to get inside the fence. So,
It's taking away, is what it's doing, and taking away the routes that the deer travel
yeah,
to get to the wintering ground, and taking away the habitat.
yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah.
I'll-
You okay with 1320 at this point? Yep, okay. And Craig, you are, I am, okay, great. So that's item number 11. Moving on to the next one, item 12, 75-foot back, I'm sorry, 75-foot setback in naturally vegetated buffer from wetlands included in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's National Wetland Inventory, except for wooded wetlands. May not be located in wooded wetland, but no setback or buffer required.
In other words, it could put it right up to the edge of the wooded wetland.
But not in the wooded wetland.
Right up to the edge, though. There's no setback, which makes sense to me.
Um,
well, we just carry that 75-foot right through all of it.
yeah, it's a good question. Oh, Rich, would you mind just helping us to understand why you could go right to the edge of a wooded wetland
Well-
and not have a 75-foot setback?
Let me say this, the environmental impact or the value of a forested wetland, I'm not trying to downplay it, but isn't really the same as it is with the open and wet scrubby shrub wetlands. And I guess in some sites, it might prohibit the operation from happening. It just, I don't know. I just don't think that they're comparable from an environmental perspective of value.
So you're thinking that based on your experience that either by the way, state or national agencies examine the overall value of a wooded wetland as compared to another type of wetland, because they have different values or effectiveness, if you will, then that's the reason why a setback is not going to be required from the wooded wetland.
Yeah. Originally, the shoreline zoning law, and I realize it's not the same as this, but the original shoreline zoning law required zoning around forested wetlands. And there was a big outcry about that, and that was removed so that it was only non-forested wetlands that had to be zoned with a perimeter around them.
So you can build a house next to a forested wetland with no setbacks.
Yeah.
It may not be a great idea, but you could.
It's certainly under Maine shoreline zoning law, you could.
In our subdivision ordinance as well.
So Rich, Craig was asking, is that in our subdivision ordinance as well? And I don't remember.
I'd have to look at it.
That's a good question though, because, right, I mean, we may want to point that out.
Because can't do it with a subdivision while you're putting thousands of little roofs. You know, I know they're only counting the base, but in reality, it's 1,000 little roofs out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, you know, you can't put a subdivision, you can't put a house in a subdivision next to wooded wetland, why could we put 1,000 little roofs?
It's a fair question.
I
So,
do
Rich, I heard Craig's comment about that, right? Did you hear that?
agree with Craig that we should be,
Yeah, consistent with each one relative to setbacks from, or not having setbacks from, a wooded wetland or a forested wetland.
I don't see where 75 feet would make that much of a difference on a fairly large piece of property if we just went 75 feet around all wetlands, wooded or not.
one thing I could do is check the subdivision ordinance, see what that says. But
Well, I was just doing that right here, Rich, and there are references to wetlands in the subdivision ordinance, but no reference to wooded wetland.
yeah, no, I do think that the subdivision ordinance, I think that probably there would be no specific setback from the wetland. But shouldn't be in the wetland at all.
So is there a setback from a wetland?
Let me look, Craig. There is a reference that no building in the cluster development shall be sited on slopes. This has to do with slopes as well, steeper than 25% within 100 feet of any water body or wetland.
Yeah. Now, that wetland definition in shoreline zoning doesn't include forested wetlands.
So that, it raises a question in my mind, Rich. What's the, what differentiates a wetland from a wooded wetland? Do you know?
A wooded wetland has wetland soils, wetland plants, but the real distinction is that the height of the trees have to be sure the number, but it's a wooded wetland has predominated by trees of a certain height. You had a wetland that was just nothing but shrubby bushes, that would not be considered a forested wetland. I think it might be 6 meters tall or taller.
Oh, really? Okay,
So 18 feet roughly.
yeah.
So then what he just brought up was a slope.
Mhm.
There's nothing in here about a slope.
Do we have that somewhere else where we were drafting the ordinance? There's
Possibly, yeah.
So there was a reference during the last Thursday night's discussion about the need to address stormwater drainage. It's something that you guys have not yet gotten to.
Stormwater, okay. But in terms of the question about slope, I don't know if we have anything specific. Certainly,
I thought at some point we just, anything over, same thing with a house, anything, what was it, a 20% slope?
right, that'd be out, right?
Yeah,
Because that'd be a resource protection district, right?
right.
So,
So,
that's that. Where, I don't know. But if we didn't, this would be a good place to include it. I was thinking we had a section on prohibited places. And one of them was 20% slope.
So again, the language in the subdivision ordinance, I'm just looking through it again, and this is the only thing I can find right now in the subdivision ordinance. It reads, no building in the cluster development shall be sited on slopes steeper than 25% within 100 feet of any water body or wetland, or on soil classified as being very poorly drained. Which just on the face of it, sounds like it would be a reasonable standard to also apply to solar development.
Right. Right. It would seem reasonable to also apply the same standards to a solar development.
Yeah. And then later, there is a reference in the subdivision ordinance, portions of a lot which are unsuitable for development in their natural state due to topographical, drainage, or subsoil conditions, such as, but not limited to, and it mentions both slopes greater than 20% and wetland soil. So there's that 20% that Rich just mentioned. Although earlier, let's see, it mentioned about cluster development.
So earlier in our solar ordinance, we do have development standards for approval, sitting prohibitions, the development of construction and producing, so it will be prohibited in the following locations: shoreline zone, village critical resource described by the town, in areas of 20% or greater slope.
Yeah.
We already have it.
That's good, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for finding that. So relative to the slope part, does that address your question then? Because we're saying that if it is steep slope, we can't have a solar division, solar thing. It does not address the setback from a wooded wetland, though. And I think as Rich mentioned, the two types of wetlands are viewed as different value or effectiveness. So I don't know if I don't know how the group feels, but we could either table number 12 and talk about it with a larger group, or we could try to come to an agreement on it tonight.
Yeah. One thing is if there's a compromise involved here, would be perhaps something like no setback adjacent to a forested wetland unless the forested wetland is greater than 5 acres. Something.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah. So I think, Rich, just as you started to say something, Craig offered that maybe we could table this one and talk about it with a larger group.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
That's okay, we could do that, right? And I think Rich's comment about a possible compromise language might be something to consider for a way to do that.
Mhm.
Well, and just so you guys know, this is actually much easier capturing changes as they are occurring. So tomorrow I will send an updated document to the board, and I'll call attention to this section that we've added in from George's memo, so that George and Sarah and Peter can also
See it. All right, thank you. Then moving on to, I think, item number 13, which says, protect prime farmland and farmland of statewide important agricultural soils and lands. No more than 10% of a total project area may be located on land with soils defined by U.S. Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Services as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance as determined by a field survey conducted by a Maine licensed soil scientist and in accordance with Maine Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry's May 2020 guidance document titled Determining Prime Farmland Soils and Soils of Statewide Importance for Siting Solar Projects in Maine. So I think what I'm gonna do is, hang on, I wanna admit Dan. Hey, Dan. All right. So I guess the real nugget on item number 13 is really identifying the prime farmland, right? Or that which is already identified as prime farmland. I don't honestly know where all those are in Belgrade. I'm assuming we must have some around, because we have some pretty nice habitat.
Again, I'm just curious, maybe you know, Rich, but a reference to prime farmland, is that a working farm or just land that previously was farmed at some point in the past?
I think it has to do with what the soils are as much as
Ah.
whether it's used or not at this time. It's like,
Correct,
Interesting.
correct.
Okay.
So you can have a fallow farm,
Yeah,
no farming activity at all, but it's already have, if a soil scientist said this has got the soil type,
so it could potentially be a farm at some future point.
correct.
Interesting.
obviously Farmington doesn't have that standard in their ordinance.
Correct.
Or Benton.
Right.
Well, it's right there in the name in Farmington. Right.
So, I guess I'll just say this, it could be that some people in town may say, well, if I want to have my prime farmland, go as a solar farm, what would prohibit, if we had this in, then they would not be able to do so. I'm not saying that many people would want to do that. I don't think that at all. I'm just trying to think about it from both sides, though.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, Reedfield had a regulation that was very similar to this.
When the fellow did the presentation, he did talk about that, and that was mentioned. And my ears perked up on that when they said that. So I personally think it's a good idea to have that in there. Myself.
I do too. We probably don't have that much prime farmland existing in Belgrade. I don't know, but it's something we probably shouldn't cover up with solar panels.
Right. And
I'm agreeing too.
now, I guess I'll put one more plug in, it would be really cool if on a map, we could say, these are identified as prime farmland areas.
So does the U.S. Soils and Geological Service provide that information?
I think so, either, or ACF, Maine's Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry may do that too.
Rich, what was it that you were saying?
Oh, I was saying, I think it would be, I think the Department of Agriculture or whatever they're called now, or perhaps even Geological Survey would have that information available, mapped out. Or
And yet, I would think it would be something that the applicant would have to prove that they're not sitting on top of farmland.
I just wanted to make sure that the CEO or the town would have that information as well, because it's one thing to say, my land's not on prime farmland, and have some way to actually truth that.
I would have no idea.
So Richard, why don't you make a note and see if there's a resource out there somewhere that would provide that information to us.
I'll check it out. Oh, or did you say Richard?
Richard.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He said red.
Yeah.
But I would think they'd have to, if it's questionable, they'd have to prove that it wasn't, right?
Agreed, 100%. I just want to give the town sufficient information to have a meaningful conversation as compared to just being bowled over by somebody. So we know that the ACF relies heavily on some GIS stuff, and they do publish information like that. So. But I really like this idea of including that. And Craig, it sounds like you do too. And Rich, you like that
I do.
So right now that I'm turning the page to page 6 to look at items 14 and on. The way from George's memo, 14 provides safety fencing around all electrical equipment, fencing.
So I think, Peter, you guys have already addressed 14, 15, and 16.
I did have check marks on my copy of that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and so now you're sort of looking at 17, 18, and 19.
Thank you.
For the maximum area clearing. That's figured.
Okay, so maximum area of clearing of
If you
land
want-
that is primarily forest land or wooded vegetation.
Okay, so, if you want to table this with 12 until we have a full group, I'm fine with that.
Okay, Rich, you want to table this as well?
Yeah,
All right, thank you. So, table 17.
17 and 18 are sort of
Hand in
kissing
hand.
cousins.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
so-
yeah. So
Both of
table
them then.
17 and 18. And then on to 19, use of herbicides. So the use of herbicides to manage vegetation within the development is prohibited. Mechanical means are to be utilized, which may include animal grazing. And then we need to have this PS in the language. PS, there is a guy. I know a guy.
I like the first sentence, but I don't think we can keep the second.
Agreed, but the concept is pretty cool though, you know.
Yeah.
Because I think all it is doing is indicating there are alternative methods to than just the use of herbicides, so that's nice. So, in terms of the sentence there, the first, use of herbicides to be managed is prohibited, then mechanical means, those two sentences, are we good with that language? Yeah, Craig, yes. And Rich, you good with that?
Yep.
So I would say let's include that, please, Anthony. And then number 20, within 30 days of the completion of facility construction and prior to the start of facility operation, a permit and ordinance compliance inspection report by a Maine registered professional engineer shall be conducted and submitted to the CEO, including recommendations for any required remediation measures and a timetable for their implementation. I do like that idea. And recognize the fact that a compliance inspection report done by a Maine registered PE would amount to a certain cost that the applicant would have to shoulder.
Peter, let me search this document real quick.
Certainly.
That sounds familiar, and I can't recall if we had discussed that previously or not. Let me search this.
Sure.
Now, this is also related to the memo that George sent out after our last meeting. He said there were 2 points that we discussed but never concluded. And one of them had to do with whether or not you require soil testing or whatever. And George came up with an alternative that basically requires the facility to do a visual inspection or around the facility inspection at least once a month and document that in the files. I don't know, have you seen that memo, Peter?
If it was in an email, I saw a bunch of email traffic, but I can't recall exactly.
The first part had to do with, he had a suggestion on how to word the road where it's coming off the main road, where you don't want it in a straight line. He had the language that said, had to have a curve or a bend road in the facility itself. I think if we have that memo, that's something we should discuss and if we think that's appropriate as well.
And Rich, did that come up when we were talking last week about I remember Dan was here, and we're talking about line of sight, off the road, and we're talking about the road going straight up, because he was suggesting when you come off a public road to get into a facility, you'd have to do a zig and a zag, basically.
That's,
And I
that's,
think, was that when we talked about it? And then, okay,
And I said meandering.
meandering, yes, that's right, yeah, yeah. It makes it kind of cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
got that straight from the shoreline zoning ordinance.
Yeah. So, very good. So,
Yeah,
go ahead, Anthony.
if it's helpful, yeah, George sent this email last Friday, and if it's helpful, I could print it out for you guys. And it does include some additional language to the language that you guys already agreed upon when it comes to vehicle access, to access roads and transmission lines. And those being combined into a single corridor.
Last Friday.
Yeah. You have that, Craig? Give me a
Yeah,
print
I'm
out.
pretty sure I read it. Can't quite remember.
I know.
Here's the proposed language so here was the original language that you guys were agreeable to last week. It reads, vehicle access and electrical transmission routes shall be combined into a single corridor through required vegetative screening and buffers, or shall be co-located in existing rights of way, roads, or other existing man-made linear features. And then I added this second part here. Oh, no, I guess he did the same thing. Access road shall have a vehicle travel surface that is no less than 12 feet and no more than 20 feet in width. And so what he's proposing is adding this additional language. When the proposed access road is unable to take advantage of an existing man-made linear feature, the layout of the road from a public road into the facility is to include at least one curve or angle such that the access road does not provide a straight line of sight of the facility's modules or other equipment.
So, to me, that makes sense, because that's, I think, is in line exactly with what we talked about last time. And as you were reading it, Anthony, I was trying to envision what it would look like, and I might be biased, but I think that all makes sense, actually, the way it's been worded. Did we overlook anything in that wording?
I don't think so. But I mean, it just sounds like essentially you could have just an L. If I'm understanding it correctly.
Right. Could not, right? Is that what you said? Like,
Well,
if the public road's here,
Yeah.
this way, then you have to go in,
you have to shoot off in some direction.
do some
So
direction.
you can't look down the road.
Right.
and see.
You can't just have a line of sight, so you have to do something else.
Yeah.
And I think too, wasn't there talk about trying to minimize sheet flow down some slope if you had some road going, because if you had some road between 12 and 20 feet wide along the edge of the facility, not to have just sheet flow of water coming down, which was part of the idea about the meandering part, I thought. I'm not trying to make up stuff, that's what I was thinking of.
Well, it kind of goes along with the shoreline zoning ordinance of a path through the woods. It's not supposed to be a straight
Straight,
path.
yeah.
For the same reason.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the key phrase in what George is proposing in this new language is the access road does not provide a straight line of sight of the facility's modules or other equipment. So
Yeah.
I think that gets to what you guys were talking about last week.
I agree.
I agree, we ought to add that language.
Done.
Craig, you like that? Okay, yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. That's good. Thank you very much for finding that, putting that in.
And then George did have a couple of rather lengthy passages on soil testing. If you want to, I can read those. They're lengthy.
Stand by. So, I thought it was just on that email.
Yeah, so it's on that email as well that was sent last Friday.
It was Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Oh,
You found it, Craig?
unfinished business.
Yes.
Do I recall the gist of the memo was that DEP has found that just random soil testing just really doesn't do a very good job, and that in the end, I think he concluded that man-done inspections on a regular basis would be a better alternative.
What was it? Can you say that again? I was trying to read.
Yeah, you're saying that, would you mind repeating that, Rich? I'm sorry.
Just of George's memo was that he and DEP, as they worked with these sampling things, determined that kind of random sampling and whatever, there's found out it wasn't very efficient or effective, and that he felt that we may be better off having a regular on-site visual inspection and looking around. And he has language toward the bottom of that memo that addresses that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and
Yeah, but who's gonna do that visual testing? I mean, visual inspection, they are, and they're just gonna document it, or? I mean, so,
Well,
How
he
closely?
suggested that the CEO or other authorized public officials such as DEP responders, the fire department or the state fire marshal.
do the inspections.
Correct.
Is the state fire marshal gonna agree to something like that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it helps that we have one here in town.
so we say the inspection law, or it's the way you wrote it here, I'm at the bottom of that, it says, the inspection log will be maintained at the owner's place of business in Maine and will be made available upon request by those different people, those different authorities. CEO, fire chief, or duly authorized public officials from the state of Maine.
And I think under
Yeah.
George's recommendation or language, it says that the inspections shall be done by an authorized,
Qualified,
competent, qualified representative of the owner or whatever.
yes, that's exactly what it says. The inspection shall be conducted by a qualified representative of the facility owner. A written, paper, or electronic inspection log shall be maintained with, at a minimum, the following information, blah, 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 blah. It's technical term. You know, I'm not bothered by the fact that someone who's a representative of the owner does the inspection. It's really that conveyance of information to other people that makes it important. So they do the inspection, and then inspection log is maintained with this information. The inspection log will be maintained at the owner's place of business and is made available upon request by the CEO or anybody else. The fact that it's a regular thing that's prescribed rather than just leaving it up to happenstance, I think is a good thing. But does it is it rigid enough? Or formal? I guess that's the question.
Peter? I'm not sure whether we need to go that far or whatever, but if there's any concern that the company representative is doing these inspections, they could have a requirement that an individual independent from the company shall do the inspection. But I know it might be going further than what most industrial or commercial companies they're required to maintain inspections and stuff like that nature. They're typically not required to go hire an independent individual to inspection of the facility.
Yep.
See, George is concentrated on the oils, but there is hazardous materials in the panels. And the leaching, we don't know anything about it. And how you're gonna be able to see that visually?
I would suspect, I don't know anything about the panels or not much, but if there is a possibility that some hazardous material escapes, I'm thinking that you're not going to see it on the ground like you'd see an oil spill or something of that nature, because it's probably not even liquid. Is there liquid inside any of those?
I don't think so, it's all metals, and if they're cracked, you know, if somehow a panel got cracked and they didn't catch it in the inspection, then that's the way your leaching would happen. Soil test every 5 years or something.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Are you thinking soil testing every 5 years?
Yeah, something like
That
that.
was one recommendation.
Along with the visual, the regular visual that George is recommending.
That's a possibility. On number 2 of his memo, in the email that he sent, he mentions one of the lessons I and DEP learned in the late 80s through the 90s is that general soil testing is an ineffective and costly tool for leak and discharge detection, whether in the context of petroleum storage facilities or hazardous waste storage facilities. That is especially so in large facilities where any soil testing regime will often miss individual leaks. The better approach is to rely on either leak detection equipment, e.g. secondary containment tanks with 24/7 leak detection equipment for underground storage, blah, blah, blah. Or, as in the case of storage of CMP transformers containing PCB oil, routine manual inspections. So from that perspective, from his professional experience there, that's why those manual inspections are valuable, apparently.
Yeah, and that's all to do with the oils, and I get
But no, not only oils, the other things too, right? PCB in oil would be oil. I agree, totally, 100%. But are you thinking like if you had a cracked panel and you were wondering if like
the rain keeps hitting it, and there's, certain materials in those panels that are considered hazardous.
This,
I can't remember the name of the metals right off the top of my head, but I have researched it and have read it. I don't know.
I was going to say, we may want to do a little more research on these panels before we conclude anything. And as I said before, I personally don't know exactly what the layout is in these things, where the metals are, or is it anything that could leach out. I'm not sure exactly where we get that information, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable coming up with some kind of requirement that we really don't know where they could even create a problem.
Do you want to table this one and talk about with a larger group?
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right, let's do that. All right, so that was that one.
What number was that here?
It was a good question. It had to do with
21.
had to do with, George had the follow-up email.
So, yeah, so it was in an email that he sent on the 13th, Richard. And so I've gone ahead and put it into the document so you guys can, and I'll call attention and say this is a point of more discussion on June the 9th.
Okay,
And have simply labeled it as inspections.
okay. All right, thank you.
And also do keep in mind, and this is something that, lastly, on George's email, he also suggests that perhaps for transformers installed within 300 feet of a private well or 1,000 feet of a public well, there are some other safety precautions that you could take with secondary containment units.
Right.
For those transformers. That
Yeah.
could potentially leak cooling oil. So that may be something that you guys want to discuss on June the 9th as well.
Yes. It's a great idea. When I say great idea, not only to discuss it on the next meeting, but his point is a really good point.
Dan is listening in, but he doesn't have access to a microphone, but he just texted me on the issue of access roads. This seems like a very wise suggestion. We should require maintenance for emergency vehicle access year round, i.e. plowed.
Yeah,
That the road in needs to be plowed.
great point. Yeah.
It doesn't snow in Maine anymore.
All right, so that was that one. And it's almost 7. And you're, Mr. Slosser, you're here. Yep. And I think I see a Wendy Slosser is up.
She couldn't attend tonight, but she may be zooming in just so we
She's-
can watch.
She's zooming in. Yeah, she is. She's in attendance. So we will get to your application here in just a few minutes.
Not a problem.
Thank you for your patience. So for the planning board, are we okay to, at this point, stop this part and then go on to the shoreline zone application? So Rich, you okay to do that?
I am.
Okay. Anthony, are you okay with where we're stopping for this one?
I'd love to go on forever and ever, Peter, but
All right.
probably could. So, no, I spent a good amount of time the last 2 days watching last week's meeting, stopping and starting and taking notes. I'm good. And like I said, I will send this out to everyone, probably do it right now while I'm still fresh, so everyone can take a look at it. When
Okay,
they come back from fishing trips and school board meetings and so forth.
excellent. Thank you. Thanks very much. So it's now 7 o'clock straight up. We've gone through the old business on our agenda. The next part of our agenda is to go over new business, which is an application from John and Wendy Slosser. Location is at 90 Pine Beach Road, map 42, lot 15. And the purpose of the application is to request to renovate an existing camp per attached plans, build a garage 24 by 32 beyond the 100-foot setback, move existing shed beyond the 100-foot setback, and install new septic with H20 chambers beneath driveway. This is a non-conforming lot and non-conforming structure. Welcome, John and Wendy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over tonight. Appreciate it. Okay. So Pine Beach Road, that's that steep road up near Libby's, Rick Gladdy's pits, right? That's that one.
Actually, it's Jason Stevens.
Now it is,
Yeah.
right, yeah. Pine Beach, yeah. We live not far from that road, so we walk up there.
Sure.
It's a great view from the top, that's for sure. I'm sure it is from your place too. And so you wish to do
Yep.
renovate an existing camp, add a garage, and the shed, okay.
I've already had the septic approved by the town.
Okay.
I submitted a plan, and I just haven't executed the plan.
So essentially, he is adding approximately 100 square feet to his cottage, bringing that from 900 to 1,000 square feet. And then, once again, the garage will be beyond the 100-foot mark. And he's moving the existing shed to beyond the 100-foot mark, to be more, even better and more compliant to conformity. So I want to just take a minute and look at his plans. He meets the requirements for everything that I can see.
Okay. So the shed, if I'm understanding this correctly, the shed's gonna go from one location and move further away from the water, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
It'd be going back to what's, in general, what I'm seeing is near the proximity of what something's called a septic field, a current location of a septic field, is that correct?
Yes,
But you also propose to move the septic field from its current location to a location beneath what's going to be the driveway. Right?
yes.
And when doing so, you wish to have an pipe from a septic tank to the new location. And it looks like you've indicated to have an insulated and protect that pipe that goes.
Yeah, whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
I'm not a septic expert, so.
Yeah, I don't know. It just talks about those things on this plan.
I'm sorry.
It just mentions those things on this particular plan. I was on, I don't know what page it is. There's a picture
You
here.
can hold it up so I can.
Sure.
Reference what you're looking at there.
So it's gonna be one of
When you,
Yeah, just a typical,
Just,
you know,
just shows where stuff's going.
oh, yeah, but what you said insulated.
I think that says insulate and
yeah,
protect.
but that's just styrofoam under the ground.
Yeah,
It's probably so it won't
standard,
heave.
Craig.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really read the final height. So what's the total height?
Of the structure, of this cabin.
It's right there, but I just can't read it. 25.
All I know is that I'm not doing, any addition that I'm putting on will not exceed the current height of the existing structure.
Perfect. So you're just, so what you have here is what you already have? Or,
I don't understand the question, sir.
yeah, you said you wasn't gonna go over the existing, right? And you're only adding 100 square feet.
And the part that's being added is where?
If you,
One.
on the back corner of the existing structure. One of the exhibits is labeled as page AB1 of the
Okay.
existing second floor plan. Or on the right-hand side, or you look at the existing first floor level plan on that page.
Yep.
The back right corner or the upper right corner, there's nothing there, and that's where the additional footprint would be added. Also, if, I think 2 pages later, page is labeled A1 of the plan, which is proposed first floor level. You'll notice that that position is grayed out, and that is added, it's actually also labeled on that diagram as added footprint. Just a little gray area, that's the 100 square feet of footprint that they're adding, proposing to add to the cottage.
Right.
So it's like 4 by, it goes the whole length, but it's like around 4 feet or something.
Peter, can I ask a question?
Sure, Rich.
By the way, I got a call from the hospital just a minute ago. I had to answer it, so I'm back now. But so I may have, these questions may have been asked. How far is the existing building from the water? And how far would the addition, the beginning of the addition be from the water? Because it's got to be at least 25 feet from the water to be able to add anything to the structure.
When you think about the existing structure has a 6-foot porch on the lakeside, plus the kitchen section, which is another 16, actually 16.2. And the porch is probably 5 to 7 feet at least from the high water mark. So the addition is behind the 25-foot setback.
Okay, and with the addition, the total square footage of the building would be, I want to make sure it's less than 1,000 square feet.
The footprint of the proposed structure will be 1,000 square foot of footprint, which is what's required in the ordinance.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of your explanation.
The proposed square footage of footprint of the proposed structure is 1,000 square feet.
Okay. Total square footage.
Of footprint.
So you've kept it within the allowable limit.
Yes, sir.
Because this structure that we're talking about, including the extra 100 square feet that you want to add on, is entirely within 75 feet from the normal high water mark. Is that
That's
correct? Okay. So, Rich, did I say that in a way that made sense?
It did, but the other key issue is that it's more than 25 feet from the water. Even though it's within 75 feet, it's not an expansion toward the water, so that's allowable. But the ordinance specifically says no portion of a structure within 25 feet of the water can be expanded. So Mr. Schlosser indicated that this addition is at least 25 feet. And within 75 feet of the water, you can only have no more than 1,000 square feet. And so this would fit under that standard as well.
Okay. So from a perspective of what we've just discussed, you feeling comfortable with the information we have and about what they're asking to do?
I think so. The new garage is back 100 feet,
Yes,
and the shed is going to be moved back to 100 feet, correct?
correct.
So by moving it out, that doesn't count toward the 1,000 square feet. So that would enable him to put on this addition assuming that the shed was at least 100 square feet. It looks like something that I think is permissible.
It does seem permissible to me. Based on what we're talking about.
That was kind of, that was kind of the idea behind moving the shed, I believe, was to allow for that expansion.
Yeah.
Because if you hadn't moved it, and depending on where the shed was, it may not have been permissible. But
Yep. So let me just ask, this is kind of a housekeeping thing. So I understand what you want to do, and I think we're going in the right direction. When looking at this application right now, I think Rich's question about the part where you want to do the expansion, what distance is that from the water? That was his question, right?
Yeah, no,
Right, and you answered the question, which is, thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if it was clear on the application anywhere that would indicate where that would be. And that's kind of why we asked the question, because I couldn't figure it out by looking at the drawings.
Well, we can make a simple line here with, I think, John, you had mentioned where the expansion would start, based upon the numbers you threw out, I think it'd be like 30-ish feet. Is that correct?
yeah, I mean, you've got 16 and 6 is 22 of existing structure that we're gonna go, the addition will go
Beyond.
start there and go back. And then from the front of the porch to the high water mark is probably 5 to 7 feet. So
Yeah.
you're well beyond whether it's
Sure.
5 or 7.
Right.
Yeah,
It's an irregular shoreline, so
Yep.
I kind of,
So it's roughly 30.
yeah.
So, Peter, would you like me to make a little note on the official copy, a little,
please.
just
Yeah,
a
that'd
line
be great.
here saying with 30 feet from the water mark is where his expansion will start?
Well, according to the existing, so the addition's just going on the second floor. Is that, am I right? Because according to your existing, you have 16 feet, and then you have another 10 feet, 2 inches. So right there alone, just in building without even the covered porch, it's 26 feet.
So when the lake is here.
Yeah,
So if the lake is 5 feet, 5 to 7 feet this way,
yeah.
you have 6 feet of porch.
Yeah.
Plus another
Oh,
16
this is the
feet.
addition.
This is the addition
Oh,
here.
oh, I see, yeah.
That corner is where the addition will
Right.
reside.
So this is the addition.
That's the addition. Yeah, so no problem with with what we're trying to say. All we're trying to say is like, from the housekeeping perspective, for Richard and the CEO,
I understand that.
you know what I'm saying?
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
So that's why I think, just indicating,
Advantage.
thank you very much for doing so.
I saw, when I was looking at it, I thought was the addition was this graded out area on a different plan that it was talking.
It's the same
I didn't
corner on
realize
that.
it was just that corner.
Okay,
So it doesn't, so where the addition's going is. It
right,
just squares off the building, is all it does.
right. And I think that's a good intent. I think what Rich brought up was that, is that according to the ordinance, anything within 25 feet you
Right.
couldn't do. That's why I wanted to make sure to indicate that this is beyond the 25 feet. That's all I was trying to get at. You know,
I understand.
because as you might know, right, anytime someone starts swinging a hammer near the water, these guys are gonna get phone calls, right? So just want to make sure we're documenting and being very clear, that's all.
Oh,
That's
Mr.
a-
Foster and I have had so many emails and phone calls about this application.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I studied the ordinance and to understand what exactly I could do.
Right,
And that's how we came across it, came to this plan,
perfect.
understanding that what I needed to.
Yeah.
What my requirements were.
And thank you for doing the consultation with the CEO to get to that point. That's really great, so. Okay. It does not appear to me that there'd be any kind of a problem with this at this point. We talked about height, what's allowable within 25 feet and what's not, what's permissible for the total amount of square footage within 75 feet. You talked about your new septic. That's not us.
Great.
And then silt fence, because you've talked about, we haven't discussed this much, but you've indicated that it's gonna be a silt fence. Will be part of the erosion control.
We'd have a silt fence and probably an erosion control mulch berm to contain anything that might be, I mean, it's a fairly level lot, so there won't be a lot of flow
Right.
in the first place, but to protect the lake, we will put it around the house. And when we're constructing the garage, we'll do the same thing, so
Okay.
nothing comes towards the lake.
Okay, great, thank you.
Peter, I got one more question.
Certainly, Rich.
Are there going to be any trees removed during this construction?
No trees will need to be removed to add the addition or the garage. There may be a tree or two, just because it kind of, one or two trees probably leans over the zone where I will build the garage.
Yeah.
But it is my intention to minimize any removal, because the more trees, the better off the property is.
Okay,
And just maybe help me understand, where is the garage gonna go?
If you look on one of the plans where the existing leach field is.
So like, here's a
So-
septic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the septic field, the new septic will come over here.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna build roughly on top of the old or the existing septic field, which is beyond the 100% setback.
And the 100-foot setback,
Is rough, this is a telephone pole, and it's probably just beyond the telephone pole is the 100-foot setback.
and do we have that indicated?
Maybe you didn't get a copy of that, or did you?
As long as it's on a plan somewhere that,
130 roughly,
okay, maybe it's on a different page.
or perhaps
As long as the
Did
town has the information.
yes, this is
that's
the
really
official
important.
copy.
Yeah.
There's 100 foot, and so you tell people.
Yeah, the 130, okay, it's called C1. I was looking at something that's not that, so maybe it just
There's an
had,
additional page that came in during the CEO review.
And they also showed the silt fence going around the new construction. And on the other page, it showed the silt fence going around the new septic.
excellent. Here it is.
Looks like about half the lots wooded.
Right? Yeah, a lot of wood stuff. Great. Okay, so height is not an issue in this particular case, where the proposed construction to have a 100-foot expansion not to exceed 1,000 square feet is not a problem, right? You're not changing the roof line for the
I will not
existing
go
camp?
higher than the existing roof.
Right.
That's a requirement. The ordinance.
Right, right. Then other items of interest are beyond 100 foot. We're talking about here, so that whatever's going on with the garage at some point. Hey,
I'm having to have this sketch. You know, so,
you want to take a look at this
sure,
one?
sure.
So, so what he's proposing to do here in this existing building,
Mhm,
there's he proposes to have an addition in this corner
mhm,
with the water here, right? So in this corner,
mhm.
which is beyond, Rich Baker brought up the fact that expansions within a building must be beyond 25 feet. It can't be within 25 feet of the water,
Mhm,
and this is beyond that.
mhm,
What Mr. Slosser is proposing to do is to have this addition here, so that the total square foot of the will be 1,000 square feet,
mhm.
which is matches the.
Yeah.
Proposes to not change the height of the structure at all.
Mhm.
Silt fence, erosion control, mulch, berm area around this. This will be a function of, he proposes to take an existing septic field, move it from a current location to another location, which will be under this driveway. And then have other means to go over that, and traverse that area. And in the place of that septic system is where he would propose to build a garage.
Sure.
And that's real quick and dirty on that.
Yeah, sure.
I probably missed a lot of detail.
No,
I
it's,
apologize.
actually, I'm glad you recap it.
Yeah.
Because I went through it and it's just, I have, now is much better. Thanks.
Certainly. That's where we are with that one. Okay. What questions do we have? Anything more for the applicant? Rich, any more questions for the applicant?
I don't, I just have a comment. We will have a new roof, I don't know about new roof line, but we'll have new roof area. And we need to, as part of the condition of approval, is that EP best management practices be used to address the runoff off of the new portion of the building. But because the other roofs are already there, this application doesn't affect them. So therefore, we just need to get that condition of approval in there, that DEP best management practices be used for addressing runoff.
I just couldn't hear what he was saying.
Go ahead, Craig.
So, condition of approval is gonna be DEP best practices management of the stormwater, the water running off your roof. And basically what that is crushed stone along your drip line on the ground. So you dig a little trench, 4, 5, 6 inches deep,
Yeah,
fill it full of crushed stone. That's all it is.
not a problem.
Yep.
Not a problem at all.
And the other sort of subtle point with this is that what Rich was saying was that exactly what Craig said, but it only applies to the part of this application, which is new roof, right? So existing roof, right, that's already there. This application does not apply, or our condition of approval on this application does not apply to the other parts that's already existing. It's the new stuff.
That doesn't mean that wouldn't be appropriate to address those, but we can't make them.
I think if I have a little backhoe in there digging a drip trench, it's not gonna stop at the 10 by 10. It'll probably do, most of what I can do easily, because that's best practice, and also will, restrict any erosion around the foundation or the pilings that are holding up my camp. So I'm very familiar with that. I built a house in Rome 12 years ago, and instrumental with what was then the BRCA, and Peter Callan helped me to put drip trenches in because gutters up here are problematic. So I understand, and I will be doing that anyway. It wasn't really required for the application.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks in advance for all that. So, Rich, thanks for that comment on the new part that we're talking about before this application is going to be a condition of approval. I know you came in as we got into this.
I can't go. I just came in because I thought I was hoping to catch it before he started. That's okay.
Okay. I have no more questions. Any other concerns about this application? Yeah, are you good?
I'm good. I think
Okay.
I'm 5 for 5 now.
Yeah, excellent. Way to go. If so, I would entertain a motion to approve this application with one condition. Anybody want to make a motion?
Do we do the motion before we go through the other things, or do we?
Oh, goodness, good point. We probably, yeah, this is the most labor intensive part, Mr. Slosser. We have to go through a longer findings of fact, so bear with us as we go through that. So we'll get to that, Rich. Thank you very much. This is at 90 Pine Beach Road. Tax map is 42. Thank you. Great. And this is in the shoreland zone. Do we need a certified contractor number?
Yes, I would say-
Pylons,
Oh, pylon, so no other earth removal? Oh,
unless you need it beyond 100 feet.
I don't know what we do.
I think you need, I think it applies to the entire shoreline zone. If we don't have one, I think we'll have to put that as a condition.
Okay, and so just to be clear, so the entire shoreline zone goes back more than 100 feet, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then, so when we're talking about the earthwork for the septic removal and for the garage, that part, right? That would be part of this. So what we're saying is that we would want to have a DEP, we need a DEP or certified contractor number that would go here.
I don't have a contractor yet.
That's okay, that's okay. It'll just be a condition of approval so that after this is approved and you go forward and say, hey, we can go do this thing, then you make your arrangements, then turn it into our CEO. That makes sense?
That works, yeah.
Okay. Because we know how that goes, right? But we just want, again, making sure.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. So findings of fact, the applicants on date, that's today's date, for shoreline permit 4, you are renovating existing camp. Add garage.
I think it's probably easier, Peter, to read it right from the agenda as I reworded it. There's not quite a lot of room. It may
Yeah.
be easier for you, I'm not sure.
I'm sure it will be. Thank you. Yes.
I kind of worded it a little bit nicer on there. Because there's just a lot of space for the applicant to write.
Yes. Move. Okay. Thank you. The application was presented to the planning board on today's date, which is the 18th, right? 19th, thank you. 19, 22. Yeah. With dates. Okay. These findings of fact and conclusions of law were developed in conjunction with the consideration of the permit application. 2, conclusions of law based on the application materials. Based on the application materials, testimony, statements, evidence, and documents and other materials submitted to it, and the above findings of fact, the Belgrade Planning Board finds that the project is permitted under section 14, table 1 in the ordinance, and further makes the following conclusions based on the applicable provisions of section 16D of the ordinance. So we have a number of things to go through, so please bear with us as we do this. Number one, that it will maintain safe and healthful conditions. So by a vote, the board found this standard was met. So we'll do a roll call vote. So Rich,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Sarah?
I can vote.
So you can, not gonna vote. So I would vote in favor, so we have a quorum of 3 in favor, none opposed. Number two, will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters. By a vote, the board found this standard was met. So Rich?
Yes.
Yes. Craig?
Yes.
I too am in favor, 3 in favor, none opposed,
One is abstained.
and 1 abstained. Thank you. I didn't know if you were recusing yourself. Okay. 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 Great. Thank you. 3, will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater. So by a vote, the board found this standard was met based on application materials on the public record. So Rich
Yes, was met.
was met. Craig
Yes.
and I too am in favor and 1 abstain.
I'm just rethinking that because I'm recused. When you're abstained, it means that you couldn't vote either way.
Right.
You stay from voting because you couldn't say yes, or couldn't say no. So actually, maybe you're right.
So just recuse
Recuse,
yourself.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll go with that, okay? All right. Thank you. All right, number 4, will not have an adverse impact on spawning grounds, fish, aquatic life, bird, or other wildlife habitat. By a vote, the board found this standard was met based on the application materials and public records. So Rich?
Standard was met. Yes.
and
Yes.
Yes, I too am in favor, 3 in favor, none opposed, 1 recused. 5, will conserve shore cover and visual as well as actual points of access to inland waters. So by a vote, the board found this standard was met. Rich,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
I too am in favor, 3 in favor, none opposed, 1 recused. Number 6, will protect archaeological and historic resources as designated in the comprehensive plan.
Mhm. Oh, well,
Yeah, in the comprehensive plan. So by a vote, the board found that this standard was met. I think it applies as, to me, it's an easy yes that it applies, yeah. Rich,
Yes.
Craig, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so 3 in favor, none opposed. But I know what you're saying though, too, Craig, because the other one we'll get to. Number 7, will avoid problems associated with floodplain development and use. So by a vote, the board found this standard was met. So Rich
Yes.
and Craig?
yes.
Yeah, same, 3 in favor, none opposed, 1 recused. Number 8, is in conformance with the provisions of section 15, land use standards. By a vote, the board found that the standard was met based on evidence in the record and further as follows. We have a number of things to go through, so many of them will not apply, but some will. A, minimum lot standards. Would that be NA?
I would think so.
I think so. B, principal and accessory structures. There is an accessory structure in this case, so I think it does apply.
Yes.
C, campgrounds. NA. D, individual private campsites. NA. Thank you. E, commercial and industrial uses. Thank you. F, parking areas.
NA.
G, roads and driveways.
Mm.
Let me ask you this, if you don't mind. There's going to be some stuff going on with the septic system and then the driveway's just going back. Even if it's going back in place, does that still apply, or how do we work that in this case?
I was asking.
We're digging a hole and filling it in.
Yeah.
I know that's the goal. I'm saying about from an application perspective, is it being addressed?
We can keep it in there. 'Cause it's not-
I think it would, and I think it would, and then it, of course, the silt fence and whatnot would cover that, so we'd be in compliance.
Yep.
I think that's why it would be applicable.
Me too. Agreed. Keep it and we're good. So H, Signs,
NA.
I, stormwater runoff, that does apply. J, septic waste disposal systems.
Yes.
K, essential services.
No.
L, mineral exploration and extraction.
Unless-
M, not unless something's different. Then M, agriculture. N, timber harvesting and land management roads.
NA.
O, clearing or removal of vegetation for activities other than timber harvesting.
Yes.
P.
Yes. P, hazard trees, storm damaged trees, and dead tree removal. Is that NA? Q, exemptions to clearing and vegetation removal requirements. R, revegetation requirements.
NA.
S, erosion and sedimentation control. I think, yes. T, shoreline stabilization.
NA.
NA, right. Soils.
No. Yeah.
NA, I would say. V, water quality.
Yes.
Yes, I would agree. W, historical and archaeological sites, that's NA. And then X, resource protection, we're not in that district, NA. And then a standing condition of approval needed to meet required shoreland zoning ordinance findings in this section, 16D is this. So to manage stormwater runoff from new or expanded structures in accordance with section 15I of the Belgrade Shoreland Zoning Ordinance and the main DEP's best management practices as outlined in conservation practices for homeowners publication. Such measures have been put in place prior to building use, and that an example Craig gave already, right? There are others too, but that's probably the easiest one. This is a standing condition that applies to all permits unless deemed unnecessary by the planning board based on the following rationale. To me, it applies. So does anybody disagree? We're good? All right. So that would be in there. So that's one condition of approval. I think we also wanted to get, I just tossed
Certified
out.
contractor.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm just gonna jot that down in here. So certified contractor number submitted to, can I say to the CEO?
Sure, yes, please.
Thank you. Before construction. So 2 conditions of approval. So I think we're at a point now, but we actually have to vote on number 8 as a whole thing. So number 8, the whole thing. So in favor that the board found this standard, all these things was met. So Rich? Yes, and Craig?
Yes.
I too am in favor that yes. And the things we had talked about were principal and accessory structures, roads and driveways, stormwater runoff, septic waste disposal systems, erosion and sedimentation control, and water quality. Those are the items. Okay, then going to this last. I think I need another piece of paper.
Do you?
Tonight in the motion and stuff. right?
Yeah, there's the part where we actually sign it and when we vote and say it was done on this date.
Here's the signature paper. You need scratch paper or did you need something?
It's a piece of paper that says on this date that we,
Is it missing out of there?
yeah, it's
Okay,
missing out of here.
I'll get it for you.
We're almost there.
So what would it be, the very last page of that?
I believe so.
finding fact?
Yep.
You just check.
I don't see it here, unless I'm missing it. Might be able to have one in here too in a minute. I think he has one, yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry, I left it out on you.
It's okay.
I don't know why. I don't know how.
We adapt and overcome,
That's right.
right? Okay. So based on the above findings of fact and conclusions of law on today's date, which is 5/19/22, Town of Belgrade Planning Board approved by a vote the shoreline application of John Wendy Slosser. With the above conditions and at a meeting on today's date. Develop these written findings of fact and conclusions of law adopted on today's date. So those in favor of approving this based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law. So I would say, Rich, in favor?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
I too am in favor, so, and one recused, so 3 in favor. None opposed, 1 recused. So it has passed, it'll be mailed to you, okay? And thank you for your patience with us tonight, and best wishes on the project going forward.
I just, one of the lingering questions I have about the process. One, I wanted to say thank you to the board. I too have served on the planning board for a number of years over in Rome, so I understand the burden that you folks bear, and I appreciate your time. Under the current circumstances with shortage of supplies and things like that, is there a limitation on how long I have to complete this project?
Oh, good question. 1 year, is that correct?
You have
No, no, that's 1 year, 1 year that you have a substantial start.
Oh, right. Good
When
point.
you, 30%.
30.
Oh, is it 30? Thank you.
So I have to get at least 30% into the project within a year.
Yes.
And if for some reason we couldn't achieve that due to contractor shortage, material shortage or something like that, I have to come back to the planning board.
I believe
Is that
so.
what it is?
But it would
But
be.
we-
I think
Let's hope
it
I can
was-
get going,
but-
but you know, that's,
So it'd be just like an extension, so it wouldn't be as involved, because we've already gone through all this stuff, so
We already
it'll be rather
yeah,
simple.
I'm just, you know, I realize that there may be a timing issue, so I wanted to ask that question. So,
Yeah.
Great, so.
Great question.
So when you get if you get a contract number, you can call, we'll get this squared away, I'll give you a little placard, and I'll get you a copy of this, all of this.
And that you just filled out is what I received?
This will be part of our town's records, and you'll get an approved
Permit, yeah.
permit,
Oh,
which
okay.
should be part of this one.
This is right here. I figured you had to sign it first.
Yeah, sure.
And that'll include the conditions that were added tonight, because I didn't write all that stuff down.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can get a copy of everything.
And I probably owe the town some money as well,
Yes, you will.
so. Can't forget about that.
Does
Thank
Rich
you.
want one of us to sign for him?
Oh, good question. See, hey, Rich, this is slightly unusual, because we would ask you to sign this. Can you sign it tomorrow?
My suggestion is give it to Richard. And I don't know if he's gonna be in tomorrow, but I can come in and sign it in person and pick up that hard copy of the shoreline of the solar farm changes.
I won't be in, Rich, but I'll leave it up front for you so that somebody will can attend to you and get you to sign it.
Okay,
That's acceptable.
will do.
Okay. So thanks, Richard. So both Craig and I have signed it. That's this one, and then this is that part.
Okay, and I will leave this up front for Rich.
Thanks. Do you want a paper clip to put them together?
Oh,
There we go. All righty.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Are you heading over to the camp now? I mean, you guys up there? Fantastic.
We've been up for a couple of weeks and kind of unpacking, because we bought it last fall and.
Yeah.
And we've been unpacking and rearranging. Kind of,
Well, you've been in Florida for X amount of months. You failed to mention that.
I'm working on my tan.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Good night. Good night. See you around up there.
I just wanted to thank you all too. The word
Oh,
from
Wendy.
beyond. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Have a
All
nice
right,
night.
bye.
Bye. Okay, so getting back to the agenda. So that's that one. That one. And then for the next piece of business for us is old business, which is consideration of the May 5th planning board minutes. Stand by, do people have? No, I'm making a remark because I'm seeing minutes and it says, Town of Planning, Belgrade Planning Board, May 12, 2022 minutes, which,
So it should have been May 5th because the May 12th was the commercial only meeting. So was it just,
We don't have the May 5th. We should do both actually tonight, but we don't have,
well,
oh, never mind.
I think all we have are, well, I have May 12th.
Yeah, I do too. I don't have May 15, I mean, 5th.
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. We don't have-
okay, so
Peter,
Yes, Rich?
are we looking for the May 5th? Or I didn't really catch everything that was said.
Yeah, we were looking for the May 5th minutes. The only minutes I have are the May 12th minutes.
The May 5th minutes came from Anthony, memo of May 6th,
Yeah.
May solar minutes and working CDRO, May 6th from Anthony.
Okay,
And the document is May 5 solar minute.
We only have one.
Yeah, I think we only have an email.
well,
okay,
I may have dropped the ball there, and I apologize. If so,
that's okay. Okay, so May 5 solar minutes.
May, yeah, it came out on May 6th.
Yep.
Oh my God, my computer won't stop. Elon Musk got hot on the news now,
Who did?
huh?
We'll get to it.
You want to see them? Oh, you have the phone, Craig?
Mhm.
You had them in your phone?
I haven't found them yet. I see the agenda for May 12th. Draft minutes, I just found.
You got them? All right.
So, as I'm looking at them, and it's, planning board will return, yeah, it's all about the solar. So anything else after that?
That's what I see.
Yep, same.
And that's what we had
I thought,
people on the 12th, on the 5th. Huh.
on the 5th, which was 2 weeks ago, we should have had more than just the solar
right,
discussion.
fifth,
Maybe just what the consultation thing.
what I have wasn't the minutes.
So Craig, on the 5th, did we,
Yeah, I just found them again.
which one did you find? Yeah, I'm on the same one. And so my question is, did we do more than just the solar panel discussion?
That was last week, right?
The 12th, we were
12th.
entirely dedicated to
Yeah,
just
we did.
solar.
I believe so.
I thought on the 5th, we had some other stuff to do.
I think the 5th should have more minutes. than just solar.
Yeah. I think so too, Rich. Stand by. Working. What's that one?
So as we have his old business.
Yeah. So I'm gonna suggest we table this until we find out what.
Yeah, so the 5th was the Adam Garner application
Yeah.
and the Walter Kiso with the barbecue
Oh, yeah,
stand.
Yeah.
Good point,
And then the 12th was just solar.
right? So for our discussions tonight, we can't approve the May
Right.
5th minutes because they don't have, yeah, it's incomplete. So
we
we,
can go for what we have, approve what we have, come back. And then we only have to add that, or, you
Yeah.
know, reread it and we don't,
No, I said we wait until we have it all.
we do the whole thing.
I would prefer to have it all together rather than do a piecemeal myself. So what we have in front of us from the email
Right.
is just the solar discussion. So it doesn't include the other two things that you just brought up.
And, all right, so the Anthony Jen doesn't, well, now it's Alexander, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to check in who's taking care of it. We need a copy for our next meeting.
Right, exactly. Now, they may be somewhere, and maybe I'm just not looking in the right spot, but I'm just looking in an email, and this one that Anthony sent on the 5th. We 3, 4 are only finding the solar
I
discussion.
don't think that the minutes were done.
Okay,
That's my thought right now,
Okay.
but I'll look into it before the next
all
meeting.
right. And I just want to make sure to say this is not a criticism. I know there's been a lot going on with trying to make sure people are, this is not that at all. I think it's somewhere. I have faith. I have faith. So let's table the minutes for the 5th.
Can you let me try it, just look at one more time in the website of town. I doubted that they are posted, but maybe there was a
Worth a
confusion.
look.
So we have a agenda list. No, we don't have it listed here.
Okay,
The last agenda that we have listed is April 7th.
okay. Thank you for looking.
Sure.
Appreciate that. Let me ask the board this. With the May 12th minutes that we have, should we proceed to review those minutes from May 12th? So Craig is here, Sarah's here, Rich is here, and I'm here. The only person who was at that meeting who is not here tonight would be George. Do you want to do the May 12th meeting?
Oh,
You
sure.
know, I just saw him a few minutes ago. and I can't find
I have those right here. You want a copy of it?
Is that okay? You want to do those?
Yeah.
Rich, Craig, you'll good to do that?
I'm okay, but I can't find it.
Okay,
Um,
I'll abstain if you've got a quorum.
mhm,
Yeah, we can do that, I guess.
Yeah.
With all the information, drawing information that they send on this project, I'm so glad that you recap it because I had a hard time following it all.
Yes, it can be very challenging, just trying to keep up with, some of the, it goes back and forth, it's hard.
So interesting, those minutes. I don't think they are in the package, in the electronic package.
That was for tonight? Oh, goodness.
Unless maybe they are at the beginning, let me check that out.
Okay. So the May 12th minutes are not part of the package?
They're not part of the package.
Okay. But yet they're stapled to this that was
Oh,
printed.
they're here, they're,
See a couple things.
do you happen to have an extra copy of the minutes
From May 5th.
from the 12th?
Let me see.
Maybe this is the email. Hmm.
Sorry, Sarah. I don't have the agenda.
No worries.
Peter will criticize me.
Hmm. Okay, Craig, you have some comments?
Yeah, just. On the back page, the board agrees the visual impact assessment would be used as a measurement tool. Also agrees on a minimum 50-foot buffer along property lines, 200 feet along public roads, and 250 feet along common property lines. For the residential, I don't know if that's all worded right, and I thought we agreed. And so this is buffer. But the setbacks, is, is being confused, buffers and setbacks. Because we agreed to 125-foot setback along the back property lines and 200 feet. I thought it was 250 feet from roads and house.
True.
You're right.
You might be onto it. Let's see.
Sarah, you can get those minutes in,
No, it's not in the packet. And I'm checking the email, I don't have the
Do
meeting.
we just want to table these as well?
It wouldn't hurt my feelings if we did.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Let's do that.
So next meeting, I need to include a copy of the minutes from May 5th as well as May 12th.
That's
And
right.
add that to the agenda
Yes,
when, as a final, at the end of the meeting.
Yes.
and the minutes from this meeting.
So we, thanks. So we got
No
3 sets
pressure.
of meetings, meeting minutes to
Yep.
review. All right,
Yeah, exactly.
all right, I think I got it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you. Let's do that. Oh, we should probably have a motion to table the minutes from May 12th,
Sure.
please.
I motion to table the minutes from May 5th and May 12th.
Thank you. Second. Any more discussion? All those in favor of tabling the May 5 and 12 minutes? So Rich, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and Sarah?
Yes,
I too am in favor, 4 in favor, none opposed. You got the order.
Thank you, thank you very much.
Thank you, may I have another?
And Sarah got to vote on something tonight.
Yes, yes.
Imagine that. You
All
were
right.
Fully recused.
Yeah, right. All right, well, thanks, everybody. I think we've now conducted all of our official business.
What about the CEO update?
You update, thank you.
Okay, yes, so we are down to, we just got a commercial application for another building for gagging. That just came in, and I have 3 besides that to go through, so I think we're on track. One of them actually asked to be on the June 16th, and they can't even break ground until Labor Day, so I don't feel it's an issue. And the other 2, we got Kaplan, that was Kaplan Thompson, they're redoing a large building, one of the camps. They're gonna actually tear it all down, put it back up. And then there were 2 more shoreline zone and the commercial gagging. Other than that, lately, the biggest thing I've been called upon for is tree removal in the shoreline zone, dead trees, nuisance trees. Other than that, it's steady, that's for sure.
Is part of that some of the leftover from the microburst that happened, where people are finding that, these are now either dead or, I don't know, whatever reason they have found reason to remove them in the.
I don't know, for instance, today I looked at one and it was kind of coming uprooted, and I don't know if it's just from wind over time or it's part of that microburst. I'm not a tree expert, but then a lot of them are just dead. I have to give props to a lot of the community for actually calling me and saying, hey, I cut the tree, can you come look at these trees, which I always do. I'm not a forester, of course, and as I mentioned to you, Peter, before the meeting, everyone seems to be getting a forester and arborist involved, so that's great, because as I said to you, I don't really know crap about trees.
Those professionals can help that homeowner know if something's dead or dying
Right.
better than I would know, or,
Will be,
yeah.
and I think I did 2 or 3 permits this week, non-shoreline.
Excellent.
About it.
All right, thank you.
now, about the trees,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how good it will be for you to have a session with the resource center here, because they have a lot of information about the shoreline and how the trees protect the shoreline.
Right.
They actually have all the stuff, they have a ranking system of the kind of trees that they would prefer residents never to touch. Of course, it's a suggestion.
Right.
Okay, and we have some ordinance around that too. But I'm not even prime up myself with all the information that they have there. I just know the only thing I remember about, they make like a clinic, a general public clinic, educating the community about the importance of leaving the trees that are in the shoreline land zone there, because they grab the dirt and they hold it down. They hold if you call it the shore the shore zone, being like the coast of the lake, the trees really maintain that coast. And then when it rains, we don't have all the dirt going to in the lake, which is what pollutes the lake, kind of pollutes the lake. So.
And that's one reason I rely upon professionals to go out there and mark the trees. that need
But
to come down.
these people will not know, not necessarily will not know what they know ecologically about the maintaining the quality of the water.
Mm.
So I know that one of the things that stuck in my mind was last summer, or one of the clinics that I do through the community is that we don't want to touch any hemlock tree.
Mm.
Because apparently those are ranked like in the top of it because their roots go really down to the ground and whatnot, so. It might be a good thing. I'll send a quick
Yeah.
shot to.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah, it's funny because there's gonna be, that's Anthony's next job.
Right.
He's your boss now, and that will be Anthony's next job, wearing that outfit.
Right.
Cool.
So. I will send a quick email to Anthony about that, to see if before he takes off, it will be a way to connect you with these guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks for the update. Thanks, Richard. Anything else?
I'm done.
No? Okay.
Had not.
And,
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, there it
motion
is.
to adjourn.
There it is.
Seconded, all those in
Seconded.
favor? Rich? Craig? Me?
Yes.
There, adjourn.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. 8:10, we're done. So I think what I'm gonna do is go to the recording part.
All set for you shutting us down.
I'll come over there and do that. Yeah, I can do that. No problem.
Well, I could have done it for you. I just thought you were doing something. I didn't want to working on there.
Didn't know if I could from over there, but I do know how to do this.
So I got down at the budget meeting for the school board. That's why I wasn't here today.
Right.